ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्। Hare Krishna and welcome back to this episode of Mahabharata. Today we will be learning about who were the children sired by Vyasadeva in Ambika and Ambalika, the widows of Vichitra Vidya, and we will also understand from that what was the significance of these personalities with respect to the Mahabharata. Before we come to that, first we would like to take you to the abode of Yamaraj. Don't worry, we are not going to take you there literally, but we would like to narrate one incident that happened with Yamaraj long ago. Once Yamaraj was sitting in his abode, and you know that Yamaraj is the lord of death. Actually, there are 33 crore devatas or demigods according to the Vedas. People generally think that Hinduism means it is a pantheistic religion. Religions like Islam and Christianity are monotheistic. They believe in one God, whereas Hinduism has many gods. That is a general misconception. In reality, all of them are all the devatas like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, then we have Surya, Ganesha, Lord Shiva, Brahma, etc. They are all devatas, they are all demigods. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Name viduhu suraganaha prabhavam namaharshayaha aham adirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashaha. Lord Krishna says that I am the source of all the devatas. He is the creator of all the demigods, which includes Yamaraj. Actually, all the demigods are devotees of Lord Vishnu, and the Supreme Lord and his incarnations, like we described in the previous episode about the different kinds of incarnations, all those incarnations of the Lord are of a different category known as Vishnu Tattva, whereas the demigods such as Indra, Chandra, etc. and Yamaraj, they are all belonging to a different category known as Jiva Tattva. These Jiva Tattva category personalities can never be on the level of Vishnu Tattva. The Supreme Lord and his incarnations are always supreme, and all the devatas are devotees of the Supreme Lord and his incarnations such as Vishnu. Yamaraj is also a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. It is said that there are 12 Mahajanas in the Vedic scriptures, according to the Vedic scriptures. Who are these Mahajanas? Swayambhur Naradaha Shambhu Kumarak Kapilo Manuhu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Balir Vayasakir Vayam. Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, the four Kumaras, the son of Devahuti, Lord Kapila, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, the father of Sita Devi, grandfather Bhishma Dev, Bali Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami, and Yamaraj. These are the 12 Mahajanas. Why are they called Mahajanas, these 12 personalities? Because Dvadashaite Vijanimo Dharmam Bhagavatam Bhataha Guhyam Vishuddham Durbodham Yam Jnatva Amritam Ashnute. These 12 personalities, they know the real essence of the Vedas, which is known as Bhagavata Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him. They understand the exact import of all the instructions of the Vedas, what are they driving at, what is the purpose of the Vedas. So Yamaraj is one of these 12 great personalities, and he is a great devotee of Vishnu. But then all devotees of Vishnu like to spread the message of the Supreme Lord, the message of devotional service, bhakti to Him, to all the people. Now, Yamaraj is such a person that he is the Lord of death. He has been given the responsibility of administering over the process of death. So, he has to keep track of all the pious and sinful activities of the living entities and their duration of life in each of their bodies, and then according to their activities, he has to figure out what is the appropriate way to appropriate way for them to die, what should be their form of death, and after they die, he has to judge what kind of whether they go to Swargaloka for their pious activities, to the heavenly planets, or they go to the hellish planets, the Narakalokas, for their impious activities. Now, this Yamaraj, for him to do this activity, this is a 24/7, 365 days a year job. There is no respite in this. Yamaraj does not have a weekend. Imagine if Yamaraj were to have a weekend, Sunday is holiday for Yamaraj. What a great thing it would have been. Or let us say, once a year, Yamaraj for a week he takes holiday. No death on those days. How nice it would have been. But no, Yamaraj is very, very pakka in his services. He will not even for a second take any respite. Every second, any time of the day, any time of the year, somewhere or the other, somebody or the other is dying according to their previous karma. Yamaraj has a very great responsibility on his shoulders. Although he desires a lot to spread the message of bhakti and the message of Bhagavad Gita everywhere, he is unable to do so because the load is so much and he is immersed in his activities. Of course, he has his assistants like Chitragupta to keep track of all the sinful and pious activities, but then every day living entities are coming to his court and he is administering justice to them, and he has to send his Yamadutas to pick up various living entities from this world, and this is a constant job for him, and he is executing his services very nicely. However, always there was some yearning in his heart that I should also get a break from all this and I should get an opportunity to talk about Krishna, about bhakti, about devotional service and all that. This was a desire in his heart which was there at the back of his mind, but he was carrying on his duties. Now, one fine day in Yamaraj's court, one Muni came to his court. This Muni's name was Manduka Muni. And when this Manduka Muni came to Yamaraj, he was a little bit indignant. Yamaraj could make out that this Muni has not come here in a very pleasant mood. And he received him properly, and then he asked him what the reason was why the Muni was not so happy. The Manduka Muni explained his what had happened with him on earth. Manduka Muni had his ashram, he had his hermitage in a place known as Manduka Kshetra, which is a place in Nepal. Even today, this Manduka Kshetra is there. It is near Ruru Kshetra. Ruru Kshetra or Ridik Kshetra in Nepal is the place which is on the banks of the Gandaki river, where all these Shalagrama Shilas of Vishnu are found. So, on the way to Ruru Kshetra, this remote village known as Manduka Kshetra is even now there in Nepal. This is in the midst of the Himalayas, a very scenic place, and Manduka Rishi had made his ashrama there and he was executing his various penances and spiritual activities. One day it so happened that some criminals, they were escaping from the police, and they came and they happened to come across the Manduka Muni's ashram and they hid in his ashram. After a few minutes, the police came there and they raided the ashram of Muni Manduka, and then they captured the criminals. When they captured the criminals, they mistook that Manduka Muni was hand in gloves with them, and he was also part of this crime. So they captured him also, they arrested him also and took him along with them. And they took him to that local magistrate who was there at that time. In those days, there was no sessions court, then high court, then go on appeal on Supreme Court, etc., etc. Those kind of things were not there. Those days, law and order was implemented in a more decentralized manner. Sometimes people say India came to exist only after the Britishers, and before them there was no India. Actually, before the Britishers came, the way how the whole kingdom, the country was being governed, was that there were small kingdoms, and each kingdom would have a king. Just like today, we have many states in India, and each state has a chief minister. Similarly, those days there used to be small kingdoms, and a king used to be there, and that one person used to be he used to be the head for the judiciary, law enforcement, as well as for the defense forces. And above all of them, there would be the emperor, who would be in Hastinapura, and all these kings would have allegiance towards the emperor. Now, and for all of them, all the kings, the common codes by which they had to run their kingdoms, the common codes of law was the Manu Samhita and the Vedas. The entire kingdom was being governed by the Vedic texts, the Vedic scriptures. If any of the kings would step out of line, then the emperor would step in, and he would ensure that the kings follow the principles of Dharma. And this used to be the system all over the world. The kings would all report to one emperor who used to sit in Hastinapura. And therefore, this entire earth planet, in the beginning, of course, the earth planet used to be called Ilavrita Varsha. Later on, after the reign of Bharat Maharaj, it came to be known as Bharata Varsha, because Bharat Maharaj was such a great king. So the entire planet was called Bharata Varsha. With time, what happened was, slowly, portions of the certain kingdoms, certain kings stopped their allegiance to the emperor of Hastinapura, and gradually the reign of the kingdom governed by the emperor in Hastinapura starts reducing, and finally today we are seeing what Bharata Varsha has come to be, a small tract of land that we know as India today. Even before 1947, there was Pakistan, Bangladesh, all this was part of the Indian kingdom, Indian country. But after the independence in 1947, Bangladesh became a separate country, Pakistan became a separate country, Nepal became a separate country, etc. In the similar manner, before the Kali Yuga, the entire world was known as Bharata Varsha. Anyway, the decentralized system was of emperors, kings, and the kings in their kingdoms would have their representatives to carry out the law enforcement and the judiciary activities. So these police, they captured the criminals along with Manduka Muni and brought him before the magistrate. And the magistrate, he ruled that because these criminals have been caught red-handed and Manduka Muni was with them, therefore, along with Manduka Muni, all of them are being awarded capital punishment. And what was the kind of punishment? A spear would be embedded into the ground, and the people would be impaled on the spear. So this punishment was given to Manduka Muni also. But then, by then, the word reached the king, and the king knew about Manduka Muni, and he came rushing to the spot, and then he fell at the feet of Manduka Muni and begged forgiveness at him, and he released Manduka Muni. After this, Manduka Muni has come to Yamaraj, and he related this whole thing to Yamaraj, and he told Yamaraj, you see, in my whole life I have been a pious person. I have been engaged in pious activities, I have been engaged in worshipping the Supreme Lord, and I have been engaged in spiritual activities all my life. I have not committed any great sinful activity that I should be subjected to impalement by a spear like those criminals. So why did you allow such a horrible thing to happen in my life? This is not the way I should be giving up my life. I deserve something better. Then Yamaraj reminded Manduka Muni. In Manduka Muni's childhood, he had happened to be playing with an ant, and playfully he picked up a thorn and pierced the ant from its behind and up to its head, and like this he pierced the ant and the ant had died. Yamaraj told him, because you had done this in your childhood, you had to get this punishment. Then we can understand from this how even unknowingly, if we commit a sinful activity, there is a correspondent reaction waiting for us. All the distresses we experience in our life are due to the sinful activities we have done either in this life or any of our previous lives. The laws of nature are very, very stringent. Even if somebody does some sinful activity unknowingly, unwittingly, even for that, he has to face the reaction. Therefore, an intelligent person will always become a devotee of Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, and get liberated from this material life. Otherwise, it is very difficult to face all. There will be a mountain of reactions waiting to impose the sufferings upon us. So, this material world is not a great place to be. Anyway, when Yamaraj said this, narrated this to Manduka Muni said, Yamaraj, what is this? Children do so many things in their ignorance and in their innocence. Those things are not to be taken very seriously. Even in modern day law, the criminal law is separate for juveniles and it is separate for adults. For juveniles, for the same crime committed by a juvenile, the punishment is lesser compared to that of an adult. Because children, they do things in their ignorance and therefore it is not given as much significance as an adult when he does the same activity. Manduka Muni explained this to Yamaraj and he said, in my childhood, out of some innocence, ignorance, I did something. For that you cannot give me, and that too it was with an ant, it was not with another human being. So for that you cannot give me such a harsh reaction. Okay, children when they commit some mistake, what happens? The elders will chastise them, they will scold them and they will correct them. That's all. You don't give them capital punishment. And therefore Manduka Muni told Yamaraj, looks like you have lost your sense of judgment. So you are not fit to be Yamaraj anymore. I am cursing you to become a Shudra for 100 years on the earth. Like that he cursed Yamaraj. Now Yamaraj is the Lord of Death. He could have easily counteracted whatever Manduka Muni's curse was there, but he did not retaliate. Because he is a Mahajana, great devotee, and all devotees of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, they are very, very humble. And Yamaraj took it that yes, this is the Lord's kripa upon me. I wanted respite from the responsibilities of the administering the death upon the living entities. So the Lord has given me an opportunity to become free from my administrative responsibility in the universe. I'll spend my time spreading the message of the Supreme Lord. Yamaraj did not mind like this, and he accepted the curse of the Manduka Muni, and he was to fulfill that curse of Manduka Muni. He was born as a Shudra in this world. Now, who was he born as, and what relevance does this have to our current description of the dynasty of the Kurus? We will come to know that shortly. Now, in the meantime, let us come back to Hastinapura. In Hastinapura, Vyasadeva begot a son in Ambika, and that son, when he was born, unfortunately it turned out that he was blind. Now, when the blind child was born, Satyavati became very unhappy. Why? Because the king has to head the defense forces, the law enforcement, etc. The king had a very, very active role to play in all these things. Whenever there would be war, or there would be some battle, or some chastisement of some very powerful rogues had to take place, the king would personally go, and he would be well versed in Dhanurvidya, the art of warfare, and he would personally lead all the troops. The entire defense system would be led by him from the front. That used to be the way the chief functionary of the state used to function in those days. Now, when a person has a severe disability like blindness, he would not be able to play this role of leading the defense forces, and therefore people with such disabilities were not considered to be eligible to sit on the post of the chief functionary. Now, this son who was born blind definitely could not become the next emperor. So again the kingdoms are bereft of a proper successor, proper ruler. Therefore, Satyavati requested Vyasadeva a second time, and in Ambalika he begot a second son. And this son, when he was born, he was very pale in complexion. Satyavati was a little concerned whether the child will grow up to be strong enough to be able to lead the army and protect the citizens. So she requested Vyasadeva a third time. When Vyasadeva came a third time, Ambika and Ambalika, they were not very keen on this, because Vyasadeva is in the forest, he is wearing deer skin, he is having matted hair, not a very pleasant sight, long beard, very unkempt, because he is engaged in austerities, he is engaged in asceticism, and he is not looking very handsome and clean shaven and wearing silken robes and all that. Naturally, he is not very attractive to look at. Therefore, when Vyasadeva came, Ambika and Ambalika, without informing anyone, they sent a maid servant in their place to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva begot another son in that maid servant, and that son, who was born out of a maid servant, was considered a Shudra, and therefore he could not also be eligible to sit on the throne. Now, Vyasadeva told Satyavati that, look, my dear mother, based on your orders, I have come, I have done my duty. Please don't ask me to beget any more children. The second son, Pandu, will grow up to be a powerful enough ruler to take care of the kingdom. So please don't worry. And he went back to his hermitage to continue his austerities and penances. Now this first son who was born was Dhritarashtra, and the second son was Pandu, and the third son was Vidura. And when Vidura grew up, he turned out to be a very spiritual person, not so much interested in administration and directly involving in the royal affairs, but he was more inclined towards giving spiritual advice to people. And therefore, both Pandu and Dhritarashtra especially respected him and loved him a lot, and used to take a lot of advice from Vidura. So Vidura, even though he was considered a Shudra because he was born of a maid servant, still, although he was not eligible to sit on the throne, otherwise he was considered on par with the other brothers, and he had access to all the facilities of the royal family. But anyway, his inclination was not there to rule. Even if the throne was given to him, he would not have been keen to sit on the throne. But he was happy, content with giving a lot of spiritual advice to everyone, telling them about devotion to the Supreme Lord, about how they are the spirit soul, not the body, and always advising people to remain on the path of dharma, righteousness. Like this, Vidura turned out to be a very intellectual person, giving a lot of good advice to the emperor. And that is why even today, Vidura's instructions, which are there in the Mahabharata, are treated as Vidura Niti, which in the politics of dharma is considered the gold standard, Vidura Niti. Now, who was this Vidura? This Vidura was actually the same Yamaraj who had been born as this Shudra to fulfill the curse of Manduka Muni. And that is how Vidura came to be such a spiritual person and always speaking about devotion service to the Supreme Lord. Now, when Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidura grew up, how did the dynasty go forward? We will come to that in a short while. Now, before we deal with that, there were some interesting things happening in Mathura, which is in Uttar Pradesh. This region known as Mathura is about 200 kilometers south of Hastinapura, and in Mathura, the Yadavas were ruling over that kingdom, and the capital of Mathura was Mathura, which is there even today. It's about 140 kilometers south of Delhi today. And the Yadava family, the Yadava dynasty, had very close relations with this Kaurava dynasty. Now, how did they come to get related with the Kaurava dynasty? That is something which we would be sharing with all of you in our next episode. So please come back and join us for our next episode to learn about the Yadava dynasty and how the Yadava dynasty is linked to the whole Mahabharata. Thank you for joining us. And before we sign off, there was one question which we had left all of you with in the last episode. What kind of incarnation is Lord Krishna? The answer is Lord Krishna is not an incarnation. Those of you who got that right, congratulations to all of you. Now, why is Krishna not an incarnation? If he is not an incarnation, then what is he? That will become clear as we go on in our further episodes. So please join us for our next episode. Until then, thank you. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.